Power Rangers is a show about good guys fighting bad guys, but sometimes we do see Rangers fight other Rangers. It's happened many times in the show, but what happens when you've been around as long as Tommy Oliver has? Well, sometimes Tommy will fight Tommy. The penultimate episode of Mighty Morphin's first season is called Mighty Morphin Mutants. In this episode, Rita Repulsa is sent to Goldar to collect the Badges of Darkness, a set of rip-off power morphers that will turn putty patrollers into Power Rangers. The putties go through training to become the Mutant Rangers, with only 5 out of 6 of them actually being deemed worthy. They call out, "It's mutant time," and we meet the Mutant Rangers. Tommy and Kim then go for a stroll in the park where they meet their mutant counterparts. They end up fighting, and whilst the Green Ranger that Tommy's fighting isn't technically Tommy and actually just a putty patroller, somehow it can not only speak now, but it sounds exactly like Tommy, talks exactly like Tommy, and is able to mimic Tommy's every move. They deal with it, but the mutants do come back later in the episode where Tommy does get his first morphed face-off with the other Green Ranger. Interestingly enough though, the mutant Green Ranger doesn't have the Dragon Dagger, but instead has the Sword of Darkness, which, as far as we were aware, was destroyed a long time ago. I mean, literally right at the end of the Green with Evil saga. So how it is back, I don't know. Continuity aside though, after a Zord battle against giant mutants, they are inevitably destroyed. This episode is specifically interesting because it also highlights Tommy's battle with his forgetfulness, something that didn't really come up again in the show, not that often especially. But that's 2 battles in one, if we're counting the mental battle. No. In Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 2, we get a 3-parter called Return of the Green Ranger. Across the story, we see Zed and Rita summon the Wizard of Deception, a demonic ancient wizard that can somehow clone Tommy using a strip of his hair, and even more so, give him the Green Ranger powers. You know, the ones that were destroyed like 3 times. Honestly, the return of the Green Ranger powers in the series is like one thing, but for villains to just be able to replicate the powers left, right, and center is nuts. I mean, what was the deal with switching the powers if they could just be replaced constantly? Maybe, just maybe. I'm getting too vexed. Evil Tommy then contacts the Rangers, tricking them into meeting up and getting ambushed by the Wizard of Deception, who sends them back in time to the 1800s. Eventually, though, the 2 Tommies do come face to face, and it's morphin time. The combat is fine. I mean, this is MMPR Season 2 in the latter half, so there were some good moments. I mean, the moves were great, but it was just a lot of punch block, punch block, punch block. There wasn't too much going on. And of course, not to mention, we also get the return of that beautiful foamy American shield. And for a brief moment, the Green Ranger does actually start winning and even is able to call on the Dragon Zord, which, come to think of it, it was never destroyed. It just kind of chills in the bottom of the ocean, even to this day. But of course, the real Tommy does come back, and we get an awkwardly cut, don't get me wrong, but still entertaining battle between the White Tiger Zord and the Green Dragon Zord. Eventually, the Rangers are saved, and they defeat Evil Tommy, but they don't destroy him. They just defeat him and break the curse. But while the Rangers were in the 1800s, there was some problems with some giant rats. So the 2 Tommies travel back to that time to defeat the giant rats. And then the clone Tommy just stays there. He's like, look, I'm not going to need this power coin anymore. I don't deserve to come back, because Tommy's, the real Tommy, our Tommy's trying to get him to come back to the future.
Back to the future, back to the future, back to the future!
But he's like, no, this is the place for me. So they give him like an old-fashioned outfit, and he just stays there. The 1800s are the Tommy Oliver. Power Rangers Zeo has the 2-parter called King for a Day, and in the opening, we see Tommy face off against the White Ranger. Well, Tommy's in the command center, then everything goes dark, and then some cogs, and there is the White Ranger. But it turns out it is just an illusion from Prince Gasket. So technically, it's not really a version of Tommy, and instead just an illusion. And they don't even fight either. They just kind of look at each other. But why did I include this? Because I actually don't know. Yo, what are you doing? I'm filming. I know, but I just came to check. Have you done the Patreon bit yet? Oh, shit, I forgot. See, I knew it. Every time you've been forgetting for the last couple of weeks. You used to be on phone with it, but it's fine. Don't worry, I got you. All you need to remember, early access to content, just like this one. Yep. Some exclusive content every now and again. Yep. And all Patreons get their names credited at the end of the video. Yep, got you. Sick, no worries. Crack on. Cool. Thanks, man. Okay, Patreon bit. Oh, wait! We then have Power Rangers Dino Thunder, where after an arc where he is permanently stuck inside his suit and then he's invisible for a bit, he ends up in a coma just due to overexposure to his black energen. With the belief that Tommy is quite literally dying, we find out that within his own psyche, he is facing off with a blast from the past, and he is meeting all of his past selves. First, we find him in a desert facing off against Zeo Ranger 5 Red. They fight it out, getting very wet in the process. The Red Zeo Ranger does then surrender, but we're taken to a forest where the White Ranger appears. They start fighting, and the White Ranger seems seemingly a lot stronger than Zeo Ranger 5, especially when he brings Saber into the mix. We then rinse and repeat, the White Ranger disappears, but the Green Ranger does show up. However, we first get to see this via the Dragon Dagger hitting a tree, and Tommy, our Tommy, Black Ranger Tommy, is actually able to claim the Dragon Dagger and fight with it. So finally, whilst being unmorphed, he doesn't really have an advantage, but they can at least level the playing field. Whilst we finally get a better American Dragon Shield, this is the first episode that introduces the silver stripe in the Green Ranger's helmet, something that caused a lot of problems within the fandom. Personally, it's a silver stripe, I don't really care, but you know, people will get vexed about everything. I mean, like a Shrek 5. The thing is with the end of this fight is that Tommy does actually get overpowered by the Green Ranger, but instead of destroying him, he reaches his hand out, he picks him up, and he tells him he has passed the test of worthiness. Then, Mighty Morphin White and Zeo Red show up and hold out their hands, revealing different shards of the Black Dino Gem. Tommy is able to regain control, and he wakes up. Something else to note as well is that Turbo Red never showed up. I mean, I know TJ took on the powers, but I mean, come on, even if they just did like a 2 versus 1 with Red Zeo and Red Turbo at the same time, I mean, I think he should have at least got a mention. In Jason David Frank's final on-screen appearance in Power Rangers, we get, in Ninja Steel, Dimensions in Danger, where Tommy Oliver is kidnapped by Lord Draven and replaced by a robotic clone. Later in the episode, we see that Tommy breaks free and he's able to break free the other captured Rangers, but he is ambushed and cornered by the Tommy clone. Now, the clone only has access to the Black Dino Thunder powers for some reason, I don't know why, but with the help of Tommy's Master Morpher, he is able to turn into all of his past forms, and in the extended cut on YouTube, we see him also turn into Dino Thunder Black. Once again, worth noting, Turbo Red wasn't included, which is even weirder in this scenario because the toy shows a Turbo coin and the tie-in comic has the Turbo Ranger as a part of it. They didn't, and TJ's in this episode, and they made him in Space Blue. They didn't even make him Turbo Red. I'm not a massive fan of Turbo, but it just feels weird. It feels weird that they just ignore the fact that Tommy was Turbo Red. Anyway, after cycling through past forms, Tommy is able to defeat the main Tommy clone. But as we see later in the episode, there are a bunch of Power Ranger clones, and whilst we don't specifically see Tommy go head to head with other Black Dino Thunder Ranger clones in the big fight, we can only assume that he did at some point. And those are all the times that Tommy Oliver fought himself. Thanks so much for watching, and if you want to see a video on the history of Gold Rangers, then click the video in the corner. Huge thank you and shout out to Sarah Jane, our Super Dino Mode Patreon.